Tavshin Lamed Gimel. The Siyat Shmai Shabbos Parshas Bahar Yud Zayin Iyur Erev Lag Ba'im Tavshin Lamed Gimel. Tanya Amar Rabbi Yossi, we learned Rabbi Yossi said story Zimnah Chada one time how צריכא Almah Lemitra the world needed rain. Also Gabi Rabbi Shimon. So they went to Rabbi Shimon. Who went to Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chizki, B'shar Chavrai. These people, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Chizki, and the rest of his colleagues, the rest of the Chavedim, they went over to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. They found him down Ozol and Mechmel, Rabbi Pinchas Bar Yoel, who Rabbi Lazar Berei. They found him that he was going to see Rabbi Pinchas Bar Yoel, who was going to see Rabbi Pinchas Bar Yoel, not only Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, but his son, Rabbi Lazar. Even the Chamed Loin, when he saw Rabbi Pinchas Bar Yoel, Pasuk V'amar Shir Amai Lusil Matoi Ma'noim Shavasachim Gam Yochad. He began with the Pasuk in Tehillim. He started by saying, Shir Amai Lois, it's a song of ascent, how good and how pleasant it's when brothers are sitting together. By Dezeh, Paul Shior Gesham. And through this, he affected that rain should come down. Rebbe asked the question, when you didn't understand, why is it that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai affected that rain should come down specifically through saying Torah and Bari Metzina B'Shar Tanoim? We find in other Tanoim, even generations that preceded Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that they affected the descent of rain through davening. For example, Chayni, the circle maker, that's what literally Ma'agel means. He made a circle and he got into it and he said, I'm not stepping out, Hashem, until you bring down the rain. But what was that? That wasn't a Torah, that was davening. He was davening to Hashem. That was in the times that the Beis HaMikdash stood. So therefore, so even in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, we find that how was that taking place? That was taking place through tefillah. Moving on, it's also understood from what it says in the pasuk. If you will go on my chuk and you will observe my mitzvahs, you will do them, and I will give you your rains in their times. I knew. What does this mean? This means that there is a certain type of relationship of a serustel lasata, serustel elo. How does rain come down? When those below are refined. Now, the pasuk is talking about the refinement that takes place in davening. The pasuk is talking about the refinement that takes place through mitzvahs. But davening, in a similar vein, is about refining myself and asking Hashem for my needs. The Indians that this idea of the refinement down below is more applicable to davening. The idea of davening is about refining oneself down here below. And this is true anyone's davening. How much more so when one is davening on behalf of the community. Especially when the one who is davening is representing the entire congregation, the entire community. The kol hatzibur kol boy. Then it's as if the entire community, the entire congregation becomes part and is included in it. Through davening before Hashem, he affects the refinement of the entire congregation. Through this is affected the descent of rain. And because of this, that's affected the descent of rain. That's why, so we see this point that through the tzibur refining themselves as it's manifest in the shliach tzibur, so then the rain comes down. That is all the idea of Torah mitzvahs performance, in other words, doing the mitzvahs, and primarily davening, which is the most common way that we are aware of that brought down rain on other occasions when Eretz Yisrael needed rain. This was not the way of other Tanoim. like Rabbi Kiva, for example, that he was the Rebbe of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. So obviously, whatever Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai could do, so his Rebbe could also do. Still in all, we don't find the idea that he affected rain coming down. Paul, we only find by Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai that he, or primarily, or only by Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, that he affected rain to come down through saying Torah. And Torah is not about the zichuch hamata. It's not about refining down to below, like davening is, but rather Torah is shinyana hamshacha l'mayla. Torah is about drawing down from above. Beli hagdama zichuch hamata, without the preparation and the introduction of those below refine themselves. Gam loyai dezeh shoyashlich shalatzibur amir Torah. Not even by saying, just perhaps, just like the Shliach Tzibur in davening includes the entire Tzibur and therefore indicates the refinement of the entire Tzibur. So the same thing, perhaps we'll say, he's like the Shliach of the Tzibur to say Torah. But again, it's Torah, and Torah is not about the idea of refinement of the Tzibur or the person that's saying it. Af became Paul. Still in all, he affected the drawing down of rain. Also in a place and the state that's not worthy of the scent of rain. Why do I say that it's a place and a situation that's not worthy of coming down rain? And the very fact that beforehand there was a problem, there was no rain. Before the Rashbi said Torah, the world needed rain. It was lacking rain. Matter and the rain did not come down. So we see that the Rashbi's Torah learning was so powerful that it affected rain to come down, even in such a situation where rain was not supposed to come down. That's one question. In line 9, another question we have. What's the connection between the pasuk? Good now, pleasant to the idea of rain coming down. Specifically through saying Torah on this pasuk. Well, you didn't become me affected that the rain comes down. Also, when you understand, the exact language in the words of the Zohar. Rabbi Yossi that Rabbi Yossi specifically related the story. Other things that Rabbi wants to analyze and know, the other details of the story. Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai went to Rabbi ben and the colleagues met him while he was going to Rabbi Pinchas Bayor, and that's when he said the Torah on the pasuk Inu Matoiv. The question is, why are all these details are part of Torah? Why are they all mentioned? The L'chura Maya Shachas Shaprat Meil L'chlos in the Pulse Yudis Geshamai Amiras Torah. Seemingly, what's the connection of all these details to the general idea that he affected brain to come down through saying Torah? Ois base line 21. The idea behind this is the way things come down from above. There are two types of ways how this comes about. One is where the hashpah comes down because of an inspiration from below, in the way of us rising up from below to above to draw this down. A second type of hashpah is hashpah that comes from above to below, in a way of an inspiration from above on its own. It's not a result of our avodah down here. Each one of these two types of amshach that we just mentioned, whether it's elicited and evoked through our avodah, or it's something that's coming from above alone, there's an advantage over the other. There's an advantage in the hamshacha that comes about through the ascent from below to above. Then the one below is refining themselves. They are trying to go up. You're going up. You need to transform yourself. You need to elevate. You need to purify yourself. As opposed to something that's being drawn down from above to below. There's no refinement of the below. So that is the advantage of Bisrustul Sata. But on the other hand, there's an advantage when it's coming an inspiration from above on its own, not as a result of our Bisrustul Sata, not as a result of our refinement. Because then when then what comes down from below, from above, is not measured and limited according to the power of below. When we are doing it, we are created beings. Because we are created beings, our energy is limited, and therefore what we can reach and draw down and how much we draw down reflects our avodah. And our avodah, as great as that may be, is a limited avodah. So in turn, what comes down from above is only a limited power. But when Hashem gives us from Him, not as a response and a continuation of what we did, so then there's no limitations on how much He gives. Yeah, but it's Baruch Hu Noi saying, Hashpah, if you top of page Zayin, because then Hashem gives the Hashpah according to His manner. Therefore, the effect of the Hamshacha is in 1 hour and 1 moment, meaning instead of it taking time and duration, and it's a whole process, when does time and duration and processing apply? When it's something that is being done in an orderly fashion, in a limited fashion. But if it's not something that's being done in a limited way, it's something that's coming from below to above, from above to below, on Hashem's dime, if you will. So then Hashem has no limitations. All the Seder Shtalshalos and all the Hagabolos, all the limitations, it can come down immediately. It doesn't have to be a limited form of going step by step. Okay, it's known the metaphor for this. 2 people. One finds himself on top of a mountain, and the second person finds themselves in a deep valley next to that mountain. Now they want to get together. So there's 2 ways how they can get together. The way how they could join could be through one of 2 ways. Or the one that's on top of the mountain will descend down to the bottom. Or that the one from below should rise up and climb all the way from his deep valley all the way till he reaches the peak of the mountain. Yes, there's an advantage in each possibility over the other. The first possibility is that the one on top goes down below. Going from a top below is easy. Going downhill, boom, you're there. It's not a problem, no effort, nothing. And obviously the one down below didn't expend any energy whatsoever. On the other hand, he also didn't earn it, and he also didn't change, and he also didn't transform himself. He didn't ascend. It just came down to him. It's like a gift from above. On the other hand, the person that's down here below, if he needs to struggle to climb to the top of the mountain, yes, it's limited, it's tiring, it's time-consuming, but in the process, he is transforming. He is going higher, and he is worthy, if you will, of that elevation. So the same thing spiritually. If there's a revelation from above, no limitations, comes down immediately, nothing. But the person is not necessarily internalizing it and connecting with it because he didn't change. Whereas if it's because of the zichu hamata, if it's the person down here ascending above, so he is transforming himself. And therefore, because he is transforming himself, he is now incorporating it in a deeper level, in a level of a vessel, in a level where he contains this revelation. It becomes his, he owns it. And that's what he says is the difference between learning Torah versus davening. It says in line 8, in the middle of the page, and this is the analogy for this is the avoid of a person. These are the two types of avoid of Torah and davening. Ma'lamata Torah is from above to below, Mulmata l'maylam from below to above. That in Lashon the Gemara calls learning Torah everlasting life, and the tefillah where one is davening for material needs that calls it temporary life. In other words, everlasting life is the spiritual realm. Temporary life has to do with the physical realm, but also it means davening has to do with transforming the one down here below, the temporary nature of his guf and his nefesh habahamis, whereas Hayolam is the everlasting bleak wool from above. We find that each one has an advantage over the other. Line 11. Yes, say that avodah boy from the alvay shispal adam kol hayom. We know that there's an order of avodah. The Chazal said, halavai. We wish ourselves that we would daven all day. So we see the importance of davening, even though he called it chayesha. Yes, say that avodah boy from shaterasim nasi. There's an order of avodah in such a way that one's Torah is their profession. So that's also meaning that to such a degree we know that the Reb Shimon ben Yochai and others that Torah was their profession, was released from the obligation of davening. So we see two ways of approaching davening all day or learning all day, even to the exclusion of davening. But there are those and Bishnei and Yom the Torah Tefillah, there are avoiders in both aspects of Torah and davening. Even though they have both, but the two types of avodah of Torah and davening are in distinct times. Man Torah l'chud is man tefillah l'chud. The time of Torah is separate. The time of davening is separate. This is also the reason why Chayni, the circle maker, affected the descent of rain through davening specifically. Because in his time, that particular situation, the situation was something that was more applicable to the elevation of below to above. And because of that, tefillah was appropriate. As opposed to the time of the Rashbi, was in a situation that was more applicable to the avodah above to below. That's the idea of Torah. Therefore, that the affected the descent of rain specifically through the saying of Torah, because that was what was necessary and that was what was applicable for his particular situation and time. Page yes, not just is there a difference between Torah and tefillah, like the Rebbe always likes to take things and divide them even further. But Torah, Gufi, Yeshnei, Eifanim, Lolim. In Torah itself, there's two general approaches. Eifen Shal Achdus, there's a way of Torah where everything is joined together. Oitzer Bolum, a closed off treasure. That in that closed off treasure, everything is in there together. Instead of being distinct. These are one of the things that the Chachamim praised about the Rabbi Kiva, that he had collected all different types of Torahs, and he had put all different types of topics and everything in his treasure. That's one way, where everything is together as one without distinction between them. And there's a different way. There's another way of Torah that's in the way of division, and everything is in its proper place. There is medrash, there is agada, there is halacha, etc., etc. Everything has its own unique and particular type of area and expertise. It says in line 4, Bahagdim, by prefacing, to understand these two levels in Torah, you explain these two levels as it is Torah distinct from mitzvah. Mitzvahs in general, this type of idea of either everything is joined or things are divided, that's a difference between Torah and mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are in a way of division. As opposed to Torah, they said, Chazal said, they are poor in one place and they are rich in another place. Meaning, you might have in one place where there's, let's say, very little about a certain concept or not fully elaborated upon, but based on what it's discussed somewhere else, that will illuminate that short point over there. This is one of the reasons why it's impossible to paskin a halacha directly from a Gemara, even though it seems to say directly in the Gemara or in the Mishnah, such and such is the halacha, because unless a person is completely bucky and clear in the entire Torah Shabbat Peh, not just Gemara and Mishnayos, but also it's called Medrash Halacha and so on, they cannot know what is the final resolution, because this little seemingly straightforward halacha might be predicated on other conditions and might be qualified and limited by other things or completely countered by other things that it says somewhere else. And that's the concept. It says a toiling soul, it will toil for him. What does that mean? So the Chazal say a very interesting thing. A person that's toiling in Torah is not working alone. The Torah is working for him as well. Who he is toiling in this place. He is learning this Gemara over here in this particular page. And the Torah is working for him in a different place, meaning that very same topic is also being elaborated upon, and it's being explained in a different sugya to add flavor and details and concept to what he's working on now. So the Torah is joined with what he's working now. This means that this is the idea of the unity of Torah. Mitzvahs are the hischalkus. Mitzvahs are divided. Mitzvahs, this is film, this is mezuzah, this is esrog, this is Shabbos. They're separate things. One doesn't really connect with the other. There is on a different level that the Rebbe a lot of times brings down. Every mitzvah includes all the other 613 mitzvahs, and that's why under certain circumstances, someone that's involved in a mitzvah is part of the other mitzvah because he's really performing all the mitzvahs at the same time. But in general, externally, when I'm putting on film, it has nothing to do with Shabbos. When I'm wearing tzitzis, it has nothing to do with mezuzah. These are completely distinct. But Torah, as we said, is part of one whole. Every part of Torah is connected with every other part. And like the Rebbe always emphasizes, this connection even between we mentioned this last week, I believe, the connection between the concealed and the revealed part of Torah. We might think that they're completely different, but really they are interconnected because the Torah is really this Oitzer Bolum, this one joined thing. He says in line 10, and if we take this even in a more general way, it's a difference between Torah and davening, that Torah as well is one general thing that includes everything, And davening is about distinct levels. We know that davening is like a ladder that you go up level from level. All different levels of ascent, and each one is distinct. The Psukkah de Zimra is distinct from Shemoneh Esrei, and even Shemoneh Esrei, the apex of davening, the core of davening itself, has the distinct brachas. There's brachas of thanks, and there's brachas of requests, and there's brachas of praise of Hashem, and obviously in each one of these brachas, everything is distinct. The brachas of thanks have different levels, the brachas of praise at different levels, and the central brachas of the davening, the brachas of request, are each distinct and different. So we see in davening the idea of division, as opposed to Torah, is this intermingling. But the Rebbe goes on to what he started at the beginning of the Ois, line 11, Omnam, in Torah, there's also both of these levels, the level of Oitzer Bolum, the way how everything is together in one treasure, it's all part of one, and then there's the level of division. The reason for the matter, why in Torah do we also find the idea of division and separation and so on? Though Torah on its own is the idea of unity, Torah is not in heaven. The intention is that the Torah should specifically descend down here below, until in actuality, to impact this physical world. Therefore, when a person studies a matter in Torah, to be able to arrive from this, the ruling in halach in actuality, this adds an incomparable advantage in the learning itself. When the person is studying Torah for the sake of ruling a halacha, then the quality of learning is exponentially greater than if a person is just studying just without purpose for halacha. Let's explain from the Rebbe Rashab, when a person is involved in Torah in the manner mentioned before, to be able to derive the halacha, this affects that a person should examine the point behind the reasoning of the halacha in a very deep meditation, and therefore, because he has to analyze it so deeply to be able to reach the result, therefore the quality of his understanding increases. Through that, one reaches an unbelievable elevated status in understanding the reasoning in the truest form. Like the Rebbe Rashab in Samakvav explains the details of it. Move on Gaidel Miles Halim and Minigel Halacha Poelts understood the great advantage of study concerning halacha, doing halacha. From the Chazal say, what does it mean that Hashem is with him? It means Sha'alacha K'moisem. So we see that halacha has to do with Shem Havaya. That's how we know that it's Havaya Imoy, because the halacha is ruled like. On the other hand, top of page says, V'ilu b'limud stam, as opposed to ordinary Torah study. Over there it says, Namar says, Eilu ve'el divrei Elokim Chaim. These and those, both opinions, are the words of Elokim Chaim. So that means when you have different svaras without a resolution, without a halacha l'poil, that's only Shem Elokim. And when you have halacha, that's Shem Havaya. It's known the great distance of levels between the names of Havaya and Elokim. So therefore, it's understood why it's necessary, even though Torah, in essence, is a level of Achdus, it had to be in a way of Ischalkus, because this is Chalkus, is what leads us to the final halacha. By the all this comes about through the idea of division specifically. You can move them as actually hilchos. It could be sort of small bedin. Like it's known that the Chazal have a rule that when it comes to a dispute between Rav and Shmuel, if it has to do with matters of what's a year a day, things of prohibitions and permitted things, so then the halacha follows the opinion of Rav when Rav and Shmuel dispute. But if there's a dispute having to do with monetary questions in Yom of Nezikim, damages, etc., any types of civil damage, type of, theft, any monetary laws, so then the halacha is like Shmuel. How come? Talmud, the reason why in one place we in one category of laws we rule like Rav, the other one we rule like Shmuel. Sort of the primary involvement of Rav in Torah learning was in halachas of Isur v'heter, was prohibited and permitted. But the primary involvement of Shmuel was in the laws pertaining to monetary issues and so on. What comes out from this? That this division brought about the halachas. Nimtza she'inyan halacha boy, there's kalkus, comes out that the halacha is a result of the division. Kalkus, like the division between topics in Torah that's connected with prohibitions to the topic of Torah that's connected with civil laws, etc. Despite the fact that through his kalkus, the Torah comes down here, there's still an advantage in this closed and concealed treasure where everything is mixed together. It's similar to the difference between the meaning of the word yachid, where it's a singular entity, versus echad, which indicates a combination of parts. Echad means he takes down the aleph, which is the master of the world, in the 8 of the 7 heavens and the earth, and the 4 sides of the compass. The Yachid means that he's the singular one and there's nothing like him. So there's an advantage in each one of them. The same thing, there's an advantage in the Torah, that's his chalkus, and there's the advantage of the Torah that's singular, that's without his chalkus.